Hi everyone, and welcome to Corporate Security Investigations, CSS 440. I'm Dr. Brian Wisniewski, and I'll be your instructor for the next 15 weeks. I'm really glad you're taking this course, and I'm really happy to be teaching it. It's one of my favorite subjects to teach. I've done so in graduate school and in seminars before, it's just something that's really close to me because it's part of the job that I enjoy probably the most. Over my 30-plus year career in corporate security, I've done theft investigations, fraud investigations, worked with police on theft investigations, homicides, suicides, whole lot of different stuff. And I'm hoping that I can bring some of that stuff into the classroom and we can have some discussions about it. But let's just jump in and start talking about how the course is formatted. This week one is really Get Acquainted week, but please go through the lecture and read the syllabus and those things because they're all the rules of the road for the course. So over the course of the semester, we're really going to look at how to pick your investigations. That's the first step, and the tendency with someone who's new to investigations is somebody brings you something and you start an investigation. There's some things you need to do to prove that an offense actually happened and that it is indeed an offense, not just offensive, right? So someone may do something that you say, wow, that's really in poor taste, but did it violate policy or law? So we're going to talk about how to ensure that you really just pick those investigations that make sense. We're going to talk about planning an investigation before you start so you know some of the steps you'll take along the way and you can keep them orderly, keep them organized. And then you'll have to record the investigation, an investigative report normally, which may involve a lot of appendices with different types of evidence. We're going to talk about gathering evidence and interviewing witnesses, and we'll do, I have 1 week set aside, but we may end up doing 2 on interview techniques because it's really one of the most important parts of investigations is how you interview people and what techniques you use to get to the truth. We're going to learn a little bit about the political pitfalls of the workplace. And when I say political, I don't mean, national elections. I mean workplace politics. I mean the dynamics of the workplace. Understanding that if you're a police officer and you pull someone over, it shouldn't matter whether they're the mayor or someone who has no political standing in their community. But in the workplace, everyone has a hierarchy. They're a manager, or they're a line worker, or they're a director, or they are they could be the housekeeper. There is a hierarchy in organizations, and it does affect how you do investigations. It should never affect your outcome, but it does affect how you go about it, and those are things that we need to discuss. And then we're going to talk about some tools to use. We're going to talk about forensics tools. Computer forensics are obviously a big thing, and we'll talk about that, and then how to present your investigation internally and externally so that you show that you've done the work, you've crossed all the T's and dotted all the I's, and you present your investigation to either the police or to management or human resources or compliance or whomever in an impartial way that gives them all the information they need to make a decision on the disposition of that investigation. So all those things are going to be done 100% online. But there are weekly deliverables. Those who have had me in courses before understand that there's something to do every week, right? There'll be reading, there'll be lecture, and either writing, usually a discussion, or a quiz every week. Students in the last 2 semesters have told me they didn't feel they had enough opportunity to get grades. There were some weeks where I didn't assign a quiz or a discussion. There was not a graded assignment. There was reading and lecture, and they felt that they needed more opportunity to influence their grade in the end. And so we have something light each week so that we can keep going with that. Now, excuse me, there was another survey that was done that said, especially with online work, that students felt that in online classes they had more work to do than they did in face-to-face classes. I try to keep mine balanced, and you'll put about the same amount of work in this course that you do in any face-to-face course. I try to keep the reading and the lectures and the assignments relatively balanced so that in 3 hours a week, you can get the work done, which is what you should be spending on each one of your courses. That's kind of how it plays out, right? At least 3 hours per week on a class. They say the amount of time you spend in the classroom, double that. That's what you should be spending on a course. I think we can be more efficient than that, quite frankly, in this environment. So I'm going to tell you that I think 3 hours most weeks will do it. There may be some weeks which are a little longer, though, so you should be prepared for that. But I try to lay that out for you. The quizzes, discussions, a midterm, and a final paper make up your final grade. Those are how I come to a conclusion about how well you did in the course, and you tell me how well you understand the information. We're going to have some guest interviews as part of the lectures. I don't know that we will do any live interviews because not everybody can come to the table at the same time in a fully online course, and that's part of the deal. So we will embed those into our lectures when we have someone to interview. But anybody that we interview, I'll make sure you have contact information for if you have questions, and I'm sure they'll be happy to answer them. And with all that said, the secret to success here, and you'll see this again, is to send up a flag early if you start to fall behind. If you don't keep up each week with everything, there could be something happening in your life that's real and needs to be taken care of, and you fall behind. Send up a flag and let me know when you're falling behind so we can get you back on track, because there is a point where you get too far behind in a course like this and you never catch up. So let's not let that happen. So my lectures are generally 40 minutes long. I'm going to try to embed some videos, even if it's just me talking into these things. I tried that today, and there's a little glitch with I use something called Screencast-O-Matic to record lectures, and for some reason it's given me some grief today. So you don't get to see my smiling face sitting on my nice warm deck out in the sunshine. But generally it takes about 40 minutes, just like in a live class. I think 40 minutes is enough. There are some classes that last longer than that, but I think after about 40 minutes, our brains all turn to mush, and we just kind of, drift off and nod our heads and pretend we're listening. But I think that's plenty. What I do is I record the lectures, and then I upload them to YouTube. And it's a protected YouTube channel where you go into D2L, and when you click on the lecture, it will actually take you to that YouTube site that's protected because it's by invitation. You have to have the address, and you're all invited. The reason I do that with YouTube is that some of my students in the past have jobs where they need to work at night, to pay the bills or whatever, but they have some downtime. And if they copy that address and cut and paste it into their phone, they can actually watch the lecture on their phone and not have to try to fire up D2L, which doesn't always work well on mobile devices. So, and YouTube always does. So, I hope that helps. Let me know if that's a problem for anybody. But I also post the lectures, with the exception of this one probably. I post them unnarrated as well, so that you have something to take notes on. So you can print out the lecture before you listen to it, and use the slides, printed out to take notes on. It comes in really handy on quizzes and tests. The reading's generally short, but it could be complex. And so you notice there's no textbook for this class. I just don't have great luck picking out textbooks, so we're not going to use one. But the articles that I provide, some of them might be difficult reading. Some of them are really easy. But you should probably just plan on an hour a week of reading. I don't think it's going to take most of you that long. And some weeks it'll be 10, 15 minutes, and others it will be the full hour. But plan on an hour for your timekeeping purposes so that you don't get caught short. Quizzes take 30 minutes. Most quizzes are going to be multiple choice, true and false, that type of stuff, matching. 10 questions usually. I will have a test of that sort as part of the midterm. But count on 30 minutes to take a quiz. They're not real easy. They're obviously open book because I'm not coming to your house to see whether or not you're using the book to take the test. But plan on 30 minutes simply because you don't want to get caught short on time. Midterm is in 2 parts. We don't have a class that week. There won't be a lecture that week. But figure 2 to 3 hours to complete the midterm, because there will be a true-false matching multiple choice test along with a written assignment that you will write from scratch. So just plan on 2 to 3 hours of work that week, just like a normal week. The final paper for the course, and some of you have had me in courses before, is a reflection paper. It's basically what things did you enjoy or not enjoy in the course, what things are you going to take away, and how will you use some of this in your future practice. So some of you are not security majors, you may be safety majors or cybersecurity majors. You'll be able to tell me how some of the things in the course may apply to what you do and how you might use them outside of the security realm. And you also are obligated to give me some advice on how to improve the course. And that's about a 5-page paper. I say that because it's usually about 1,000 words. It's APA format. We'll work on that a little bit during the term. Everybody hates it, but it's part of the rite of passage of being a student, so get used to it. But the final reflective paper takes about, I would say, look, 250 words per page, 4 or 5 pages by the time you're done. you're going to work probably 4 hours on that, and it'll be due finals week, but I'll be releasing the full format and what I expect in the paper the week before, so you could get it done and turn it in the first day of finals week, then concentrate on your other courses. So I hope that's helpful to you as well. And again, you're seeing this for the second time. If you fall behind in this stuff, you need to send up a flag early and let me know. So what units are we going to study, and what types of things are we going to study? So the first, we're doing the intro this week. Next week, we're going to talk about criminal versus corporate investigations. Got a kind of a fun exercise to do on that, I hope. But there's certainly differences between criminal investigations that most of you see on TV and in movies and corporate investigations. And it's important to lay out the groundwork to understand the differences. Then, again, we're going to go to determining the need, picking things that really need to be investigated. And how do you know an investigation is warranted? And how do you know you're not chasing ghosts and you're just wasting your time investigating something that will never go anywhere? We're going to learn how to form the investigative plan and writing a report as you go along. I will tell you that as an investigator, that is my number one weak spot. I hate writing the report. I love doing the groundwork. I love doing the research work. Writing the report, not so much. So I'm going to force your hand and make you do it as you go along, because somebody has to force my hand to do it. We're going to talk about witnesses and how good they might be. And witnesses aren't just people who witness the crime or the offense, but those who have knowledge that will help you in your investigation are also called witnesses. So, for instance, if you're looking at a financial crime where someone may have embezzled money from your organization, you may not know the finance rules and how finance goes about, making sure that doesn't happen. What rules are in place? How do things flow through the financial systems? You would need to have someone from finance explain that to you, and they would be a witness for the purpose of your investigation. So we're going to talk about the different types of witnesses that you might use in addition to those eyewitnesses, and then we'll talk a little bit about whether eyewitness accounts are all that good. We'll talk about workplace dynamics, and this is something that I hope you pay attention to no matter what you do in your life, because it's a reality. And as much as we'd like to say that everybody is equal in the workplace, that is not the reality. It's like the old Orwell book Animal Farm, which most of you have probably read. All animals are equal. Some animals are more equal than others. And that is kind of how it works in the workplace. And as an investigator, you need to understand that, so you approach your investigation in such a way that you respect the hierarchy, but still get to the results you need and the truth that you want. And then we're going to have our midterm. And after the midterm, we're going to come back and we're going to work on interviewing techniques. And there's a couple of different interviewing techniques we'll go over, but I will tell you that I have had success, and I know that some of you have heard me speak on this before, with the Reid technique. It is just a really cool technique that has not failed me in many places. And we'll also talk about interviewing techniques that police use that will never work in the workplace, like good cop, bad cop. I don't ever want to see anybody try that in the workplace, because it fails miserably and it really makes you look silly. So we'll talk about interviewing techniques, and we'll go over some of those, and you'll find you're using some of those after we leave class. You'll use them with your friends a little bit. They won't even know what hit them, but you'll be finding out things about them that never thought you'd know. We'll talk about some cool tools, and we'll probably spill over interviewing into the next week. Each unit's a week, and we'll probably spill it over a little. But cool tools that you can use, and then we'll have more on tools. So we're going to talk about tools that are generally available to you in the normal workplace, and then we'll have some discussion about tools that are not normally available to you, just so you know they're there. They're specialists you can hire if you really have something that's a major case. And things like handwriting analysis. We'll talk a little bit about things like that. I've only used it once in 30 years, but it's a tool that you can use. So we'll kind of go over some of those things. We're really going to talk a little bit about legal constraints, because there are things that you do in an investigation that can get you put in jail, and there are things you do in an investigation that keep you from going to jail. And so, and when I say jail, I mean jail. There are basic human rights, and people have constitutional rights, and those spill over into the workplace. But it is different than a police investigation. So you need to understand the legal constraints of a corporate investigation and what protections you have, and you can avail yourself to, so that you don't get sued or, worse yet, get arrested. Presenting your case is hugely important, because you can do all of the legwork you want, and you can lay out the case, and you can find the guilty party. But if you can't present it properly, then the decision makers, in the case of a criminal investigation, would be a court. In the case of a full corporate investigation, might be human resources, management, leadership at any level, depending on what the offense is and who the offender is. But if you don't present it right, you're never going to get the result that you would expect. And you should never want a result. You should want just, a fair ending, and you've done your share and you've turned it over. But you need to present your case in such a way that it really leaves very little open for interpretation. We'll do a recap just before the final paper. So in week 14, the week before finals week, we'll do a recap, which will help you, kind of formulate your final paper, and by then you'll have the format for it. So in reality, with finals week being actually 3 days, really, you'll get at least a week and a half to write that final paper. So don't fret about that. I'll give you plenty of information on it before we do it. And those who have done it before, I think you found out it really wasn't all that hard to do. So this week, like I said, we're going to talk a little bit about the rules of the road and what our joint expectations, our mutual expectations are for the course. And of course, we turn to our syllabus, which is our guiding document. And is it boring? Yes, it's 13 pages of, oh my God, make me yawn. But it is informative. It does tell you what you can and cannot do and what I am obligated to do and what I will do. Before you call me, if you have questions about, the format of the course, please take a look at the syllabus first, because the answer's in there. That's where I'm going first. There's a syllabus quiz this week. Those who've had me before understand I give a syllabus quiz. It is worth the same 5 points as any other quiz. It's the easiest quiz you're ever going to take, because it's going to ask you if you've read and understand and will abide by the syllabus. But let's talk about the syllabus and let's go over some of the highlights together, just so we're on the same page. So as I said earlier, there is no textbook to buy for this course. I hope that didn't break your heart. I know it didn't break your wallet. I will supply articles, videos, journal pieces, those kinds of things. Some are harder than others to read. Others are really easy to watch. Just like I said, allow yourself an hour in your schedule. And if it only takes you 15 minutes, happy days. You've got 45 minutes given back to you to do with whatever you choose. I use texts in some of my courses, and in some of them, physical security being one of them that I teach, I definitely will continue to use a text. Security law, I will use a text. But in this case, I just didn't find one necessary. And I will tell you that I do pretty well on my student reviews, except for textbooks. Nobody seems to like the textbooks I get, or they say, we really didn't use it all that much, and I spent $50 on it, right, or more. And so I'm not a person that likes to be wasteful with your money or mine. And so we're going to try it without. This is the first time I will teach an investigative course without a book. And in the feedback, I would like some information from you about whether or not you thought that was a good idea or a bad idea. Don't think about cost, because you're not going to take this course again, so you won't have to worry about buying the book the second time. So don't say, no, don't have a book for this course, because it's never going to cost you anything to take this course, right, for a book. But give me some feedback on whether or not you thought it would have been easier with a textbook. I have had some students tell me, when I've not used a text before, they thought it would have been easier to follow the course had we gone with a text and followed it. And some people have that type of regimented mind where that's what they need and that's how they succeed. And I don't want to leave anybody out. But in this case, we're going to try it without, and I'd like some honest feedback from you as we go along or at the end of the course, whether you think no textbook was a good idea or a bad idea for this course. So in the syllabus, you'll see a section called General Policy. And in that, basically, it means that I am the general. I can change the rules, but I'll only do that if it doesn't hurt your success. So if I have a quiz listed for a particular week and I say, you know what, I want to make a discussion out of this. I think it's just better to do that. We'll learn more. I can do that. I have the absolute right and power to do that. Oh, it's great to be king, right? But if it's going to hurt your chances of success, then it's not something I'm going to do. So in a previous course that I taught, there was an event in the security world that in the corporate security world that was a legal issue that I thought everybody would really gain a lot of knowledge if we jumped on it and were able to look at things as they were unfolding. And we took a week out of the course on something that, I shifted things around, and we went and studied that particular issue. I think everybody enjoyed that. And if something happens, important this semester, we'll do the same. If a major corporate investigation breaks and we say, let's study that sounds like more fun, then that is what we'll do. But if it's going to hurt your success, I won't do that if it's going to, lower your grade, if it's going to hurt you in the end, you're going to learn less, we won't do it. Now, technical issues happen, and when they do, don't panic. I will tell you that probably every third week or so, I will get an email from a student saying, I tried to open the video and it wouldn't open. Well, I may have forgot to flip a switch. D2L has a lot of switches on the instructor side where you have to unhide things and make them visible and then share them with students. And sometimes you have to do the same thing twice. You have to flip a switch in one screen and in another. And if I didn't flip the switch, it happens. Don't panic. We'll talk about contacting me, and you'll find that I answer up pretty quick, and I will go and fix the issue. But it happens, and it will happen at your end too, right? Something happens and your wireless goes out, then, don't panic. But the quiz is due tomorrow. Well, you probably should have took it earlier in the week, but so be it. You're still within the deadline. Don't panic. We don't panic. We don't stress. Okay, if you're going to, at some point in your life, be a security manager, you never stress. You cause stress. You're a carrier, but you don't get it, okay? So don't panic. When you use dynamic links for the reading, I can put a link in and say, click on this and read this article, and I test it on Monday, and it works. On Tuesday, the publisher of that link takes it down. I have no control over that. Neither do you. If you click on it and it doesn't work, I try to do backups of anything that I put out there. But some of it, you can't necessarily do that unless you screenshot, 10 pages, and I'm not going to do that. So there are alternatives. I always have a plan B, so don't sweat it. But if something doesn't open, be cool. Let me know. Gremlins do invade the internet, and we're going to muddle through, and we're still going to learn together, and everything is going to work out just fine. So getting things in on time is pretty important. This is a small class, and with a smaller class, there's a lot more flexibility, right? If you don't get something in on time. But I teach other classes, and those aren't small classes. And I also work a full-time job, just like you do. You're a full-time student, or you're a part-time student, you have another job, or you're a parent, or whatever. We all work full-time jobs, and frankly, I have 1.5, because I'm teaching half-time at Slippery Rock, and I work a full-time job that is rather demanding and does require me to put in my 50 or 60 hours a week and often travel. So I get it that we're all busy. I understand reasons. If you have a reason you didn't get something done, you just need to tell me before it's due why you don't think you're going to be able to get to it, what the reason might be. I understand reasons. I don't like excuses. And if it's something that's provable, I may ask you to prove it. So before you come up with a wild story about your grandmother died, and hopefully nobody's grandmother dies during the semester, please. But if you say that, don't think for a minute I'm not going to go and look up in your local paper to look for grandma's obituary. I might send flowers. So, just be truthful. Don't come with excuses. Come with reasons why you may need an extension, and I'd be more than happy to work with you. The secrets to get the work in on time are be prepared enough to tell me why before it's due. Okay, before it's due, that's the important part. If you come to me after something's due and say, I'm not going to get my paper in on time, the answer is, yeah, I'm a trained investigator. I figured that out already when it wasn't there on the due date, right? So come to me beforehand if you need an extension on something. More than happy to work with you for valid reasons. Don't overplay your hand on that, but look, we all have lives. So again, we don't panic, we communicate. There may also be times where you turn in something and you just didn't get it. You didn't understand what the ask was. I said it needed to be in a certain format, or, you had to answer a certain question, and you just didn't get it, right? It's not that you didn't try. It's just that there was a misunderstanding, a miscommunication between what I asked for and what you delivered. If I see that, and I believe in good faith that you tried, but we just were not communicating, we weren't in sync about what I was wanting you to give me, I may invite you to resubmit, and we will talk. We'll figure out where things went sideways, and then we'll talk about a timeline about when you should resubmit and whether or not there'll be a deduction if indeed there was something that required a deduction. Most times I don't deduct. If you turn something in and it's just off the mark because of communication, we'll just communicate with each other and we'll figure it out. So revised work is by invitation, though. If indeed you submit something and then you come back and say, well, that wasn't my best work, I'd really like to take another bite at that apple, I'm probably not going to allow that, because that's just people, asking for an extension is really what they're doing. But if I think in good faith you just, didn't understand what I was asking for, or I didn't communicate it well, then I will certainly invite you to resubmit for a better grade. I really love discussion posts. I know some of you don't care much for them. They will have 2 due dates on them, one early in the week to get an initial post in, and then one that ends at the end of that particular unit where you need to put in a certain number of responses. Generally, there is an initial post, and it will have a minimum number of word count, and you're going to hit that, okay? Don't shortchange me or you. And that's normally done Wednesday or Thursday. We start our week on Monday. Wednesday or Thursday, usually Thursday is the initial post, and then your responses need to be in by Sunday. If you actually carry on a conversation with somebody concerning the post back and forth, you will increase your scores. I have a rubric for grading discussions, and you will see that in the course shell, and that will help you write a better discussion. Your initial post should not be, I think, or unless I say, write it in first person. Generally, it should be an essay. You should be coming back with what you interpreted the reading or the lecture or the subject that we're discussing in the discussion forum really means. And you do that as an academic in a way that's a neutral essay, right? No I think, no, in my view, it's really, this is how things are. And then in the response posts, you come back and you say, well, I read your post and I think that you were right here, but you were wrong here. And then you get into a discussion with someone or multiple people about, the subject at hand, so we can all learn a little bit and kind of change our view potentially. And it's okay to change your mind, to say, oh, I never thought about that. Yeah, you're right. My initial post, yeah, that's not right. I'm going to change my mind and I agree with you. Or in a collegial way to stand your ground and say, I hear what you're saying, but I still believe this to be true, and this is why. Right? It's okay to agree to disagree. These aren't rants. Okay, this isn't I'm right and you're wrong, I'm big and you're little. That's that stuff got left in the grade school yard. This is really about learning from each other. So if someone says, I don't think you're correct in that, you can come back and say, okay, I've rethought my position, and yeah, I see what you're saying. In that case, yeah, you might be right, and in another case, I might be right. Or I hear what you're saying, but I still think that my way is the way I'd like to go with that. And don't be surprised if I jump into the discussions and I will pick on 1 or 2 of you each week, and I will move it around, and you will see questions from me. Well, you said this, but what about this and what about that? And I will force you to think. You are obligated to answer my questions. It's part of that general policy and being the general, right? The big thing this particular semester especially, but the big thing is that people want to talk politics and religion when they do discussions. And that is the wrong thing to do in these discussions. Your politics and your religion are your business, and you have every right to think as you want to about those subjects. But you are an academic now, and I expect that at the end of the semester, I should not be able to tell which way you vote, where you go to church, or if you do either one of those things. Okay? That is not how we as academics think. And as an investigator, those are biases that will get you into trouble every time. And we will have some discussion about investigative bias this term, and we will bring it up in several units. So it's not listed as a separate unit because it's going to come up through the discussions all the way along. You think that you know, but you really don't know something, and you think that because in your experience or your history or just your way of thinking, something is true, and we're going to force you to prove it to be true. But we're not going to bring up politics. We're not going to talk about elections. We're not going to talk. Those are great things for political science and philosophy and rhetoric courses. They don't belong here. And so if indeed they do come up, you will get a side note from me asking you to cease and desist on that. And that is something that we just don't want to go through. So please proofread your work on discussion posts to make sure that you have taken out anything that might be objectionable to people and anything that really reeks of things that aren't integral to the discussion. Even though this is an online class, I have posted office hours, and feel free to call me during those hours or feel free to call me during other hours. So, being a remote instructor at Slippery Rock, I've only been on campus 3 times now, and every time I leave, I feel like I really want to stay. I really enjoy working with students. If I had my druthers and finances were not a concern at this point in my career, I would probably just pick up everything and move to Pennsylvania, and you would see me every day on campus. Now, I don't know that my wife likes that idea. She's pretty attached to Grand Rapids, Michigan, as my family is, and we do have a nice life here. And so, I'll continue to do this, but I will tell you that I really enjoy the connection with campus. It is the thing that I like most about teaching. And part of that is contact from students. So if you have a question, if you just can't find something, if you can't figure it out, if it's not something that's in the syllabus that you can go find yourself, which is your responsibility to do that, then you pick up the phone and you text or email or call me. I like talking by phone with students, and I'll tell you why. Because in your career, once you leave school, you will be talking to your boss and to customers and to internal leaders all the time on the phone. And why not practice that as a skill set now? So pretend I'm just look at me as your immediate supervisor in this particular course. And if you have a question, you're going to your boss and ask a question, you would pick up the phone and you would ask your boss the question. And that's a good thing to practice. It's a good way to get comfortable with the communication and to understand how it works back and forth, and understand how sometimes you have to, wait in order to get an answer back. My particular case, my bosses over the last 10 years have worked in either different cities, different states, or different countries. And so, if my boss was working in Dubai, and that's where his office was, then I would ask him a question and I would need to wait 12 hours because he was asleep. So, that happens, but, don't worry about the office hours so much. I do travel, and we're not doing a lot of that right now, but I don't have any flights over 20 hours this term that I'm aware of. But if I am traveling, you'll have to wait for me to get where I'm going to answer your questions. So, but please contact me if you need to talk to me. That's really important. So in the syllabus, there's a breakdown of each week, what we'll study, what's due. Those are the tentative plans. They can change. I put a lot of stuff in the news section of D2L. When you open up the course shell, there's a news section. You'll see me put 2 or 3 things there a week. They may be announcements that come out about due dates for things like drop ad and registration for next term, something that's affecting the campus community that I get. I'll post it there, but also things about the course, reminders that things are due, those types of things. But you are responsible for understanding what's due when. It'll be in the course schedule. And just understand that although this is an investigations course that does have some play when you go over into perhaps computer forensics or safety or other cognate fields, if you will, this is primarily a protective security course. So just understand that everything you learn in this course may not apply to what you learn in other courses in other fields about how you conduct, say, a safety investigation or root cause investigation. It's totally different than a criminal or corporate security investigation. There may be some tools you can use, some hints you can pick up, but don't confuse the two. The word investigation is a very wide one and covers a lot of fields. But this is one that is geared toward protective security. Funny thing about online courses is that I can see what you've accessed and what you haven't and how long you stayed there. I don't hold that against you. If you get an A and you never open up a single file in this course, I can't, just begrudge the fact that you are a genius. But I will tell you that if you are struggling in the course, and you text me, as students have in the past, and say, I'm carrying a D at midterm, and what can I do to bring my grade up? I will be able to tell you to the second and minute what you can do. It is, instead of watching the first 2 minutes of the lecture, why don't you watch the whole thing? Instead of opening up the reading that is only available online and then closing it up within 10 seconds when it's about a 5-minute read, you might want to at least keep it open long enough to try to absorb it. We can see what you do in an online course, and I'm not so sure students understand the technology that we actually see how long you take. And I don't go back and look at it. I mean, statistics pop up at the average because I'm trying to keep within a 3-hour time frame for your workload because I want to be respectful of that. But, please don't come to me if you're not carrying a great grade, if you're not really trying, because I will call you on that. I got a pretty good BS meter. So, make sure you've got your stuff. If you are struggling and truly struggling, I will do everything I can to drag you across the finish line. But make sure you're doing your part. I use all the tools available to scan papers and discussions to make sure that you're not plagiarizing. I have had in my academic career one student, it was a graduate student, who plagiarized a document written by the Ontario Board of Private Investigators, and it was really ironic because I had just read that booklet because I had to hire a private investigator in Ontario for a case. And I wanted to understand the qualifications, so I pulled the same booklet from online, read the booklet. It was like 6 pages, and like 2 days later, this guy turned in a paper, and it was like, I've seen this before. And I read it first, and then ran all the papers through the Turnitin program, which is what they used at that school. And sure enough, I mean, it popped up. But even if it didn't, I mean, he just used something I just read. So I use all those tools to check. Please don't plagiarize. And by the way, if other students turn in papers in previous courses, those papers, when they're run through Turnitin, also become part of that database. So if you're copying a paper from somebody else who's taken a similar course, you're going to get jammed up. Even if it's your own paper, if you've written it for another course, we can have a discussion about whether you can reuse some of that stuff. I don't want to be wasteful if it's applicable. But if you're going to reuse a lot of previous papers, you best check with me first because you're going to get jammed up. Quizzes have test banks. So if it's a 10-question quiz, there are probably 30 questions in the bank, and they will be mixed up, and so will the answers. So no two students will likely get the same quiz. I don't do that for every quiz, but I do it every once in a while, and maybe every second or third one. So if you call your friend and say, hey, I'm taking Dr. Wisniewski's quiz, and I want to go out, 10 questions, what are they? And he says A, B, C, true, C, B, D, A. You're going to get really disappointed because normally you're going to get a really bad grade because his test isn't the same as yours. They just both have 10 questions. They may be different questions. If they're not different questions, the answers will be in different order, and the questions themselves will be in different order. So, you know, look, it's an online course, and it's an open book course. So, you know, don't be silly about it. You've got all the advantages you need. You know, don't try to work together on it in silly things like that, because you'll just get caught. If you have a learning disability or a disability of any kind that's going to impact you in the course, the university has advised me if you have called it to their attention, and I will certainly work with you to make sure that we accommodate you in any way possible to make sure you are successful. If indeed you find that something you know, changes during the course of the semester, please ensure that you talk to the Office of Student Disabilities so that they can advise me that we need to make some changes in the way you take tests, the way you turn in papers. I don't put timers on quizzes. There's a 2-hour timer on them, but if you go more than the 2 hours, it'll just reset itself. So don't get flipped out by that. I'm not big on, you know, timed stuff. So, but certainly if we make any kind of accommodations, be they for a disability or any other reason, they need to be fair to everybody, and so you can count on that. I'm all about fairness. So I've got 2 slides here about me, just in case we have not met. I am Director Global Security with Pfizer Inc., which is a very large biopharmaceutical company with many tentacles and about 100,000 employees. I currently work in physical risk mitigation. In the past, I've worked in everything from executive protection, investigations, anti-counterfeiting, fraud, supply chain. So, you know, in a 35-year career, I've worked in a lot of different units. I've also worked for a number of different divisions of the company. I have a doctorate in education from Creighton University. Any basketball fans will probably have heard of Creighton. I have a master's in criminal justice from Boston University, a bachelor's in management from Spring Arbor University, and an associate's degree in general studies from Jackson College. That is how I got my first taste, really, of higher education. And so if there are any transfer students in the course, I was one too, so I get it. I'm a certified protection professional from ASIS, which is the highest level of corporate security certification you can get. I'm certified in the READ technique of interview and interrogation, both at the basic and advanced levels. And I'm a 6-year military veteran. I was an Air Force guy, law enforcement specialist the whole time, and I was an enlisted guy. So if there's any ROTCs in the course, I know what it feels like to be yelled at all the time. So a couple other things about me. I've earned a diploma or a degree in every decade of my life, and I am 60 years old now. I know, I sounded like a 20-year-old, but really, truly, I am 60. But I have earned a diploma or degree in every decade of my life, and now that I'm 60, I have to earn another one before I turn 70 to keep that streak going. I worked for the same employer for 35 years since I got out of the military, but I've been through so many mergers, acquisitions, reformations of companies that I've been through different cultures and job changes, so it almost feels like my career has been really diverse, working under the same umbrella. So the good thing about that is, you know, I get my time in and my pension and all those great things, but I've had such an opportunity to work in pharma and medical devices and transportation security and executive protection, and really on the business side and on the pure security side, even facility side. So I think that although my resume will tell you I've been in the same place for 35 years, I've done 35 different jobs in those years. So I feel like I've got a pretty good breadth of knowledge to share with everybody. I go to bed early because I get up early in the morning. So if you call past 10 p.m., you're probably not going to get an answer if you text past then. I don't mind, however, text in the evening. In fact, it's better. I work during the day. And you can text me during the day, right? I mean, it's not a problem. But I'm here all the time and will answer back. But if it's 8 or 9 o'clock at night, that's normally when students really start to wind up. It's the human condition where people between the ages of 16 and 25 tend to do better work, after the sun goes down, right? Later in the evening than they do first thing in the morning. And people in their 60s, like me, tend to go to bed early and get up really early in the morning, and I'm out on the deck having coffee while it's still dark watching the deer walk up. So you may not get an answer if it's after 10 p.m. You may wait till the next day. Just know that if you're working on something and you think you might need some help, you might want to start a little earlier or get those questions out early, or you may have to wait till the next morning. But I do stay up, and I do have the cell phone close to me, so I may grab it even if you text later, because I usually don't go to sleep till after 2 episodes of Family Guy in the evening. And I have a birthday coming up this term. Don't worry about sending cake or presents. And I like to shoot baskets to unwind. It's been tough being quarantined at home a little bit recently, but that is kind of how I unwind, and everybody's got their thing they do. I also like to ride my bike and get out in the gardens and those kinds of things. So, and we all have to have a hobby, so I'm interested to hear about some of yours. So this week, view the lecture, which you just did. Thank you. Read the syllabus by the end of the week. Take the syllabus quiz by the end of the week. Do an introduction post. Please do it by Thursday so everybody has a chance to look at them. And there are instructions about your introduction post and how it's supposed to be laid out. Part of the introduction post is so I can look and see how you write and your style a little bit. So please answer the questions in the introduction post. It's not just, hi, my name is Bill, I look forward to working with you. That's not going to cut it. I have specific questions in the introduction post instructions that I'd like you to answer. And if you follow the bouncing ball, you'll notice that as the questions change, you should be changing paragraphs at that point. So it kind of guides you through the essay writing process. And then look over the post. If there's somebody in the course that you have not yet met, please go in and say hello so you can get to know them. Because you may not see them on campus, so it's important that you get to know them because you may work a project with them at some point in this course or another. So we're at 42 minutes and 40 seconds, and this is the last slide. Contact this week. In future weeks, I'll post travel that I may have coming up or times when I may not be available in the news section, just so you know where I am if I'm in a different time zone. Again, that is not your problem, that is mine. However, I just want you to understand that 2 p.m, you send me an email or text message, and I happen to be in Vietnam or Thailand, it's going to be 2 a.m, and you're probably not going to get an answer right away. So I just want to manage your expectations. But feel free to reach out. Again, I can't say that enough. I can't help you succeed. I can't answer your questions if you don't ask them. And I really, truly enjoy hearing from students. I mean, doesn't matter. Saturdays, Sundays, whatever day it is, you guys do your stuff on weekends. If that's when you do it, then that's when I'm here to help you. You paid for this, and I have an obligation to provide a service. There are limitations for that, and you didn't pay to get an A grade. You paid to get the education and work for a grade to show that you got that education. But I take that obligation to serve students very seriously, so I want you to make sure that you take advantage of that if you have questions. There's my text number. It's also in the syllabus. There's my email. It's on the SRU server, which we should always use for email. Please always use the SRU email, because that's the legal requirement for education information. And with that, if you have questions, please contact me. Have a great rest of the week. At 44 minutes and 10 seconds, we are done with our week 1 lecture, and I will be back with you on the discussion board on introductions. Have a great week.